Hello everyone, I'm Mike Levin from MikeLevinSEO.com, and I figure right now I'll talk through a solution I'm about to implement. Think of it as the first blade of a free and open source SEO Swiss Army knife I'm about to make. And it serves as the launching point for a whole suite of features and capabilities that I can wrap into this. That's all based on collecting data manually off of the web, getting rid of the tedium of copying and pasting and flipping between applications and tabs. And so I like to program bookmarklets. I've done it for several years now, and while they are a formal part of the JavaScript browser design, they do have certain problems that has many of the people who used to rely on them moving on to extensions, like the Chrome extension. But the Chrome extension needs to be now published in the extension marketplace in order for it to work, so that shuts that off. And then there's Grease Monkey and Ubiquity and a whole bunch of other tools that can supercharge your browser, but they all have reliances that go outside the standard HTML5 specification. So I'm going to try and switch to bookmarklets, which can be well behaved and highly reliable. So bookmarklets. It's a little piece of JavaScript that executes in your web browser. Here's a page in your web browser. I draw it in red because it's a secure page. You have got the address. And I'll say https:// just to remind us it's secure, and then the domain name. And then you've also got a tab. That belongs to this page. It's showing the title tag from that page. Now you've got your bookmarklets down here. I'll just write favorite because it's shorter. And such typical ones would be read later. And when you click on one of these, a little piece of code is executed because it's using JavaScript : which makes it a legitimate link for the web browser. And any link can be bookmarked, so little bits of JavaScript can actually be in a bookmark and be executed in the context of the displaying page. The thing down here is actually a page, and such pages that are in S mode include Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and a whole bunch of others, Google itself. So you can see why, if you're doing a data collection task, which requires something to pop up in front, perhaps as a user interface, and to communicate with a server in the back, you can run into problems. Because one of the changes that happened recently being the beginning of 2013, is Chrome cut off the ability for an S page to communicate via bookmarklets with a non-S server in the background. It is the mixed context. S pages sending messages to non-S pages, it's a no-no. So the way to fix that was to get a security certificate and install it on your site, which has two problems. The security certificate costs anywhere from $35 a year or higher. It requires the expertise of knowing how to install it, and you have to have a domain registered in the first place. And I'm proposing tools that run off of the Raspberry Pi, which are, as far as the internet is concerned, nameless servers. They might have an IP on the internet, but probably not even that. It's going through a router, so it's going to have an IP that is not really the machine itself. But when you're sitting on the network everything really has a name, and it is hostname.local. So my solution is, instead of trying to communicate to a back-end server in the context of the displaying page, what's really going to happen here is a window.open call. And the thing it's going to call is going to be a non-S page with the information you're trying to capture, which, by the way, you take your cursor, you highlight some text, you click the Bookmarklet, the JavaScript is executed, and the thing that you highlighted can become the query string on the URL. Q equals, and then say it was keywords. Those keywords could be right in on the query string there as part of a request to open an otherwise non-secure page. And then what happens is you get a new tab. And that new tab is a brand new page here. Here's the address bar. This goes in here. And then it becomes http : / ... and the bit of data lives up here. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that in today's world. It follows the passing of information model, very similar to the 1 pixel tracking GIF of yesteryear. And because the ability to do this is so tied to the ability to do JavaScript as links at all, this is probably going to continue to work for quite a few years, because this is not really mixed context so much as it is two completely separate execution contexts, two different sandboxes. Because as Chrome made a big deal out of when it was launched, each of these tabs is a different execution context. They generally can't communicate with each other. If code crashes in one, it can't take down the other. But this is something of a loophole when one page actually forces a brand new tab to open. You can carry the data over like that. And the domain that's probably going to be used here is, well, my Raspberry Pi, the way it was set up with Arch Linux, it happened to be Alarm Pi, but this is your host name, which you can change and set .local. And the beautiful part of this solution is that that is, for all intents and purposes, a domain name. And when you have a domain name, you can use web local storage. Which is essentially a database right there in the web browser. And this entire application can be built so that you can rapidly collect things off of the internet by highlight, bookmarklet, highlight, bookmarklet, highlight, bookmarklet. And each time you do that, you're essentially adding a new piece of data into a database that's being stored locally on your web browser. So where does a Raspberry Pi and the back-end server even come into this? Well, since these will all be populating into a name value pair or key value pair, which is a very typical data format for JSON, a native database-like data format for the web. That is going to very easily be able to be sent with some sort of save button to the Raspberry Pi, running Python, so that JSON object is going to become a Python dict object, which is short for dictionary. And once it's in Python as a dictionary object, I've got two different things planned. Both of them, I believe, equally exciting. There is a library called Shelve built into Python, which can let you take this dictionary and drop it onto a local text file. But there is a GitHub project that replaces Shelve with Shove. And Shove lets a standard Python dictionary object connect to such industrial databases as Redis, MySQL, and just about anything else you can think of, except for Google Spreadsheets, which is what I like to drop it into so it becomes useful right away. So once it's in this dict format, instead of going through this path to Shove, I'm going to make another path where I essentially write my own, gateway or data binding to GData. As similar as I can, taking in a dict object, and that will provide an alternative path into Google Spreadsheets. And the exciting part about this approach is Shove supports so many different databases, and once I do my own so that I get this same trick going with a different database, I can use that for all kinds of things and make it get sent out by email, and you have the full power of Python to let you do different things. So you could accumulate it forever in this path, do collaborative sessions with clients on this path, do instant reminders to people through this path, and pretty soon you've got a wonderful way to collect data off of the internet that can be used in a variety of different ways, because how many times have you had to copy and paste from a web browser to somewhere else when it would have been much easier to just highlight, boom, highlight, boom, highlight, boom. So there you go. That's the diagram of the application I'm about to build, and I can't wait to show it to you. And remember, it will be free and open source, and you yourself will be able to use this along with all the other things I'll be wrapping in over time. Thanks for joining me, and please don't forget to subscribe.